My parents chose my sister's birthday over my son's funeral, even posting photos as we said our goodbyes to him. Now they're surprised the world sees them as monsters. My 8-month-old son, Marcus, died a few weeks ago from complications related to pneumonia, and my parents decided to attend my sister's 30th birthday party instead of his funeral. My wife and I live about an hour away from my parents, who are retired. My sister Caddy lives in the same city as our parents. Caddy was always the center of attention. This has been a pattern over the years, but I won't bore you with the details. The disparity became even more evident when my wife got pregnant. My parents' reaction was, at best, indifferent. My dad said it was good news, and my mom immediately started talking about how Caddy might want to have children someday too. My wife's parents, on the other hand, were thrilled. They immediately started buying baby clothes and visited us every weekend to help prepare the nursery. When our son Marcus was born, the contrast was even more striking. My wife's parents arrived at the hospital in less than an hour. My parents showed up the next day for about 30 minutes, rushing off because they had to go to their book club. For the next 8 months, my wife's parents visited us twice a week, bringing groceries and helping with chores. My parents visited us perhaps 6 times in total, usually when it was convenient for them. I would send them photos of Marcus, but my mom would reply with a thumbs up emoji, and my dad rarely responded. Meanwhile, every photo Caddy posted on social media received lengthy comments from both parents, saying how beautiful or funny she was. 3 months ago, Caddy announced she was planning a big party for her 30th birthday. She wanted a weekend-long celebration with all her friends at a rented venue. My parents immediately started helping with the planning and wouldn't stop talking about how special that birthday was going to be. At the same time, my wife and I were planning Marcus's baptism. We chose the date for the same weekend as Caddy's party, unaware of the conflict. When I told my parents about the baptism date, my mom immediately brought up Caddy's party. I suggested they could attend the baptism in the morning and the party in the afternoon, as there was enough time between the two for travel between cities. My parents didn't think it was possible. 3 weeks ago, Marcus developed what seemed like a common cold. My wife and I weren't too worried, as babies get sick often, but his condition worsened over the weekend. By Monday, he was having trouble breathing, and we took him to the hospital. The doctors said he had pneumonia, which had progressed rapidly. We spent 3 days in the hospital. My wife barely left Marcus's side, and I slept in the chair next to his bed. My wife's parents took turns staying with us, bringing us food and clean clothes. I called my parents on the first day to tell them what was happening. My mom said they would try to visit soon, but they never showed up. On Wednesday night, Marcus's condition rapidly worsened. Despite the doctor's efforts, he passed away early Thursday morning. The following hours were a whirlwind of paperwork, phone calls, and arrangements. My wife was barely functioning, so I handled most of the arrangements with the help of her parents. I called my parents on Thursday afternoon to tell them Marcus had died. My mom's response was brief. She said she was sorry for our loss and asked about the funeral arrangements. I told her we planned the service for Saturday morning at our church. There was a pause, and then she said that Saturday was Caddy's birthday party. I asked her if she was suggesting they couldn't attend their grandson's funeral because of a birthday party. My mom said they understood this was difficult, but that they had already committed to hosting Caddy's party. My dad took the phone and said they had already paid deposits for the venue and couldn't cancel on such short notice. I hung up without another word. On Friday night, my parents called me. My mom immediately started talking about how stressed they were with the party preparations. She said they felt terribly bad about missing the funeral, but hoped we would understand that canceling the party would disappoint a lot of people. I hung up again. The funeral was on Saturday morning. All of my wife's family was present, along with our friends, my colleagues, and even some relatives from my side. The church was full of people who wanted to support us during that time, which made us feel a little better. Despite everything, my parents' absence was obvious to everyone, especially since they were the only grandparents not there. During the service, I saw Caddy's Instagram stories from her party. There were photos of my parents helping to put up the decorations. After the burial, several people asked me where my parents were. I was completely honest with everyone and told them where they were and what they were doing. The following week, my parents didn't call or come to visit us. My wife and I could barely function. She had taken leave from work, and I was using my bereavement days. My wife's parents visited us daily. The following Friday, almost a week after the funeral, my mom called. She didn't ask how we were or mention Marcus. Instead, she wanted to invite us to dinner on Sunday so Caddy could show us photos from her party. She said it would do us good to get out of the house and be with family. I told her we weren't interested in seeing photos of the party. She said life had to go on. She mentioned that Caddy had received wonderful gifts and that the party had been a great success. Then she asked if we could bring a dessert to dinner, as my wife's cakes always impressed everyone. I hung up again. I can't stop thinking about Marcus and how little my parents cared, if they cared at all. They missed almost his entire short life, and now they missed his funeral too. My wife's parents have been our only family support during this nightmare. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive my parents for this. Missing their grandson's funeral for a birthday party seems unforgivable to me. Update 1. I need to thank everyone who has shown more tact regarding what my wife and I have been through than my own parents have. Seriously. Everything we're going through is hard, but your support has been very comforting. About a week after my first post, my Aunt Patricia called me. She's my mom's sister and lives in another state. She said she had contacted my parents to offer her condolences for Marcus, but the conversation was strange. I told my aunt the truth about what had happened. She offered her condolences again. She had already called me when all of this happened and told me she'd call me back later. When she did, she was furious. She had called my mom again and confronted her about the lie. My mom even admitted they had chosen to attend Caddy's party instead of the funeral. Patricia told me she immediately called other family members, including my dad's brother and several others who hadn't attended because they lived far away. She wanted them to know the truth, as what my parents had done was unforgivable. My dad's brother called him to say he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Everyone has called us to tell us about their conversation with my parents, and to say they are supporting us in this and have cut off my parents until they at least apologize. My mom called me. She was crying. She said the extended family was treating them like outcasts, and that it was very painful for them to be seen this way. She tried to give us more excuses for why they made the decision they did, and that it seemed reasonable to her. When she finished, I asked her if she understood that Marcus was her grandson, and that she would never see him again, or have the chance to say goodbye. She said of course she knew that, but that he was just a baby who wouldn't have even known if they were there or not. I couldn't even respond to that outrageous thing she said. I had to hang up and block my parents. 3 days later, Caddy called me. She had never called me directly before, not during any of this. She said she was tired of the family drama and wanted to resolve things. She suggested we meet to talk and try to find a solution. I asked her what she thought needed to be discussed. She said she understood my wife and I were grieving, but that we were being unfair to our parents. She also mentioned that Marcus's death was tragic, but it shouldn't be used as an excuse to punish people who were just trying to live their lives. Caddy continued by saying she had been looking forward to her 30th birthday for a long time, and that our parents had been essential in making it special, that if they had canceled at the last minute, it would have ruined everything she had planned. She asked me to consider how selfish it was to expect them to abandon her celebration. I asked her if she thought her birthday party was more important than her nephew's funeral. She replied that wasn't a fair question because they were two completely different types of events. Funerals are for the living to gain closure, and our parents could have their own private moment of remembrance for Marcus without needing to attend the formal service. Caddy truly believed she had done nothing wrong. She saw the situation as a scheduling conflict that had been resolved in the most practical way possible. I ended that call by telling Caddy I didn't want to hear from her again. Later that same day, she sent me a text message. In her words, she was disappointed with how we were handling the matter. Meanwhile, my wife's parents have continued to be our main support system. The contrast between our families is like night and day. I think without them, my wife would have fallen apart long ago. I can't stop thinking about what my life would have been like if I had been born into my wife's family instead of my own. My aunt called me again yesterday to say that my parents had approached her to arrange a family meeting, but she told them there was nothing to resolve. Update 2. I need to share what has happened in the last few weeks because my parents might become worse than they already are. About 2 weeks after my last update, I received a call from my workplace. My boss wanted to let me know that my mother had contacted the school asking if I was fit to return to work. She told the office staff that I was having a crisis after a family tragedy. My boss assured me that she handled the call professionally and that my job was not at risk. She told me my mother asked several inappropriate questions about my use of sick days and if the school offered mental health resources. She replied that employee information was confidential and that if she had concerns, she should speak directly with me. Not only did my mother overstep by calling my job, but she also implied that I wasn't mentally stable. I later learned that she had made similar calls to my wife's workplace. My wife's boss was less diplomatic and told my mother she could go to hell. This led me to call my mother to tell her to stop. She said she was concerned about us and that, since we weren't answering her calls because she was blocked, she wanted to make sure we were getting the help we needed. I asked her what kind of help she thought we needed. She said she was worried we were making poor decisions while grieving and that we might do something that would harm our careers or our future. She told me she had been talking to Caddy about the situation and that they both agreed we were handling Marcus's death in an unhealthy way. She added that she understood we were sad about losing Marcus, but that we were letting grief control our lives. She said successful people learn to compartmentalize their emotions and continue to function normally, even in difficult times. She gave examples of other family members who had faced losses and didn't let it affect their relationships or their work. I asked her if she considered missing her grandson's funeral an example of healthy compartmentalization. She told me that was different because they had already made a commitment to Caddy and that honoring commitments was a sign of good character. She said that while Marcus's death was tragic, it didn't change the fact that other people's celebrations and lives were also important. 2 days later, Caddy showed up at our house. My wife answered the door because I was at work, and Caddy pushed her way in without asking permission. She had brought a gift bag with party favors, leftover decorations, and some photos from the celebration. She told my wife that she thought we might want to see how beautiful the party had been and that it might help us with our grief. My wife called me at work, and I returned home immediately. When I arrived, Caddy was sitting on our couch looking at her phone, showing more photos and videos of the party to my wife. I asked Caddy to leave, but she replied that she hadn't finished explaining why the party had been so important. I told her I didn't care about her party and to leave my wife alone. Then Caddy said her celebration was more important than my wife's trauma because she had made it to 30, while my baby hadn't even turned 1, so we couldn't miss him too much. My wife, who until now had been grieving in virtually a trance, snapped out of it very quickly. She grabbed my sister by the hair and started pulling her and throwing her around the room. I had to stop that because I don't know what the consequences might have been if I had let her continue, though my sister certainly deserved it. Finally, my sister left, but threatening that she could file a lawsuit against my wife for what she did, but that she would be nice and wouldn't because of our grief, as long as we apologized. I was holding my wife and told my sister that if she didn't leave now, I'd let go again, and she should test her survival skills. She left pretty quickly. Then, my wife took the gift bag and threw it straight into the trash. The next day, my mother called me because I had forgotten to block her again. She was angry with me for allowing my wife to attack Caddy and that I should have done something about her. She said Caddy had tried to be nice and didn't deserve that. I told her to drop dead and not to expect me to go to her funeral. Now she is blocked, and my wife and I have decided to change our phone numbers. At least my wife has come out of her trance a bit with all the pain she was feeling. We are working with a therapist specializing in grief and family trauma who is also being very helpful to her. Well, for both of us, because even though I appear stronger, this has also been affecting me a lot. I don't think dealing with something like this can be simple. No parent should have to go through the death of a child. Update 3. My parents made one last attempt to contact us. They drove to our house and waited in the driveway for 3 hours until I got home from work. Seeing their car, I was furious, because these people have not only been insensitive to all of this, they can't even respect our grief and at least stay away without causing more stress to the situation. My father did most of the talking. He said they had been thinking about the situation for a while and had come to apologize because they finally realized it was the right thing to do. That they now realized they had made a bad decision by attending Caddy's party instead of Marcus's funeral. He claimed they were sorry for hurting us and wanted to find a way to repair the relationship. So I asked him the question. If they had to make the same decision again, what would they do differently? He said they would try to find a way to attend both events, perhaps leaving the funeral early or arriving late to the party. That answer told me everything I needed to know. Even after months of family conflict and rejection from the extended family, my parents still think a stupid party is more important than their grandson's funeral. They still think they should have found a way to do both. Their priorities are completely messed up. And even though everyone else thinks they did everything completely wrong, they still can't see it. Their favoritism is so great it prevents them from seeing this clearly. My mother remained quiet for most of the conversation. But when my father finished, she said she hoped we could put this situation behind us and focus on repairing our relationship, because our bond was important to them and they wanted to find a way to find balance, a middle ground. She commented that holding on to anger wasn't healthy and that Marcus would want us to forgive and move on. I told them not to mention Marcus in all of this and that I still thought they should drop dead. Using their dead grandchild was so low, even for them, and I wasn't going to let them do it in front of me. My mother started crying and said I was misinterpreting everything, and that wasn't their intention, that they didn't want to use Marcus's memory, just show that they also shared our pain and thought about him a lot. But I replied that they shouldn't think about him, that it was an insult to his memory and that we didn't share the pain, because we were suffering from the loss of a child, while they would probably be more concerned about paperwork if I died than about my death itself. The only thing important to them was how everyone was seeing them at that moment, as narcissistic parents and grandparents with favoritism and the emotional capacity of a rock. My mother cried and told my father how unfairly I was treating them while my father consoled her and tried to lead her back to the car. I haven't heard from them since, and I don't expect to. I can't believe they have the energy and the right to see themselves as the victims. It's just the two of them and my sister, of course, the only ones who can see themselves as the victims in all of this. Not even people who attended my sister's birthday and whom I don't know and therefore didn't know about my son have defended this. It's as if my parents were waiting for my forgiveness so the rest of the world would stop giving them a hard time. But they're not going to get my forgiveness. Right now, I'd rather them go back to how they always were, not caring about my life or my son's, and stay in their bubble of preferring my sister. But since it hurts them to be seen as the bad guys, here they are being even more insensitive for their own selfish reasons. At least my wife and I have started talking about the possibility of having another child someday, not as a replacement for Marcus, but as an expansion of our family. We're not ready to make that decision yet, but we're no longer avoiding the conversation, which is a positive step. We don't want to stay trapped in this pain forever and have it define us, or be a reason for us to separate, or never be able to continue with our lives by being stuck in grief. It's still early, but we're working on it. It hurts like hell, I can assure you. But seeing that there are people like you, my wife's family, My family that doesn't include my parents and my sister, and even friends of my sister providing us support, is healing. It's good that in this world where the pain of losing a child can exist, there are also people who are not like my parents, people with sense and values. Just a small moment of reflection on all of this. Something that makes me feel hopeful and where I can find strength to continue with my life, my marriage, and my dream of expanding our family. Just that, a bit of my thoughts. Update 4. Last week, after more than 3 years since my last post, we received the news that my wife is pregnant again. We had been trying for a few months after we finally healed enough to seriously consider it again. I won't say the process to get here was easy. In fact, it was very difficult for us to take the initiative to resume our original plan of having at least 3 children, but here we are. And no, we won't even bother telling my parents or my sister. I know they won't care anyway. I know what you'll be wondering. What has happened with my parents in this time? Our relationship ended completely. There was no way to repair anything after our last interaction. They have learned to live like hermits because people hate everything they did, especially after learning about many of the things they said or did, in addition to missing the funeral. We never hid anything and were always very honest with people who asked us. My parents used to have a very active social life, dinners with friends, gatherings, golf, that sort of thing. But ever since all of this began, they have been excluded. I still receive messages from people I don't know or barely know, telling me they can't believe what my parents did and offering their condolences. Something similar has happened with my sister. She hasn't celebrated a single birthday since, or at least hasn't posted about it. And as for the photos from her 30th birthday, they have disappeared. She also moved a couple of years ago because all of this affected her job, which is actually good for us. My parents no longer have a reputation to protect, so they don't bother us. And Caddy no longer even lives an hour away to come to our house and give us her opinions. Everything has fallen into place as it should have.